Echoes and Origins, Part 2, After the Plague, A New World Begins, tracing the echoes, discovering the origins. The plague had passed, but the world it left behind was barely recognizable. The Black Death had carved through continents, left tens of millions dead, and unraveled the social, religious, and economic fabric of society. But amid the grief and devastation, something unexpected began to grow. Opportunity, reinvention, and transformation. This is the second part of our journey, exploring how one of the darkest chapters in human history paved the way for a brighter, more modern world. Welcome back to Echoes and Origins. When half the population dies, supply and demand shift dramatically. The land was still fertile, but there were fewer people to till it. Workers became scarce. And for the first time in centuries, they had power. Peasants and serfs, once bound to feudal lords, began to demand higher wages and better conditions. Many fled to cities, becoming part of a growing urban workforce. Landowners, desperate for labor, had no choice but to meet their demands. In England, this led to major uprisings like the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, where commoners took to the streets demanding justice. Though the revolt was crushed, the message was clear. The feudal order was cracking. Feudalism had been the backbone of medieval Europe, a rigid hierarchy where power flowed from the king down through nobles, knights, and finally to the peasants. The plague disrupted that system. Lords without workers saw their wealth dwindle. Castles stood half empty. In some regions, entire noble lines were wiped out, creating power vacuums that reshaped political landscapes. This decline in the old order made room for something new: centralized monarchies, a more mobile and diverse workforce, and the slow rise of capitalist economics. The Black Death had been a test of faith, and the church had failed. Priests died in droves, monasteries were emptied. The church, which promised salvation, had no answers. People began to question its authority. How could a loving God allow such suffering? This spiritual crisis opened the door for reform movements. In the centuries that followed, figures like Jan Hus and later Martin Luther would challenge the church's monopoly on faith, leading to the Protestant Reformation. The seeds of religious transformation were sown in plague-stricken soil. Before the Black Death, most Europeans believed illness came from sin, bad air, or imbalance in the four humors. The plague shattered that belief. With so many dead, physicians began to study symptoms, bodies, and contagion more seriously. Though progress was slow, the experience planted the roots of modern medical science. Over time, this shift from superstition to observation would help fuel the scientific revolution. The Renaissance thinkers, Leonardo da Vinci, Vesalius, and others, would build on the lessons of the plague. With the old world in pieces, space was made for something new, the Renaissance. The trauma of the plague brought a hunger for beauty, meaning, and rediscovery. Cities like Florence, Venice, and Milan became centers of art, philosophy, and innovation. The value of the individual, once a mere cog in the feudal machine, became a focus of art and thought. Humanism, the celebration of human potential and achievement, took root. In a strange way, death had brought about a cultural rebirth. Even centuries later, the shadow of the Black Death stretches long. Modern pandemics, from the Spanish flu of 1918 to COVID-19, echo its impact. Lockdowns, mass graves, misinformation, social upheaval, all have ancient parallels. Yet the legacy of the Black Death teaches us this: humanity endures, societies crumble and rebuild. Out of loss can come learning, adaptation, and even progress. In the face of darkness, history reminds us change is not only possible, it is inevitable. The Black Death was more than a disaster. It was a pivot point. From the ashes of plague-stricken cities rose a new world, more modern, more skeptical, more dynamic. Feudalism faded, science stirred, faith evolved, art flourished. And so, the story of the Black Death is not just one of death, it is one of rebirth. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the echoes of the past. Be sure to like, subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more untold stories from history, only here on Echoes and Origins. And